Welcome to episode 3 of Lando's Sports Discussion. Of course, it's your host, Lando. Quick side note before I get into it. Everything that I say on these episodes is kind of what it looks like on paper. I haven't gotten a deep dive into the scheduling and things of that nature. I'll do that on our Between Brothers podcast episode. This is just what it looks like on paper and my gut reaction to what I'm seeing. So some things that I say on these episodes may be slightly different on the podcast because I've done a little bit more research on each team. So with that being said, this week we're going to be breaking down the Eastern divisions, AFC, NFC East. Let's go ahead and get started. As usual, we start on the NFC side, which the first team I'm going to be talking about is America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Well, first of all, let's go into last year. They finished 12-5. They ended up catching up towards the end of the season to overtake the Philadelphia Eagles to win the division. This season, they're over-under set at 9.5. Let's go ahead and break it down and see, do we believe that they can actually hit that? First things first, Mike McCarthy should be on the hot seat, but I think Jerry Jones likes him, but I think he's on the hot seat this season. Talking about the offense, he actually did well with Dak once he kind of took the offense over, but Dak just plays very well against bad teams, and the Cowboys play well against bad teams, and historically they haven't played well against good teams. But Dak, he's going to have to show something in the playoffs. But in the regular seasons, he's usually pretty good. The offensive line did lose Smith, and I think that's going to be a big hit to them. They still have probably the best guard combo in football, so the offensive line isn't going to be devastatingly bad, but I think they do take a step back. The running backs, I think they have probably the worst running back tandem in football, if at least bottom 3. There's nothing good about that tandem, in my opinion. And then also, CeeDee Lamb is an absolute stud. I really wasn't a believer in him until last season. Yeah, he's that dude. I have a lot of questions about the rest of the receivers, but it looks like CeeDee is good enough to hold it on his own, and he should be very productive after getting that big payday. Let's go to the defense. Well, the defensive front should still be good. Micah Parsons, to me, one of the 4 or 5 best defensive players in football. You also have Lawrence, so the pass rush should still be really good. The linebackers, I have nothing good to say about them. Doesn't seem like Jerry really cares about that second unit or that linebacker core. I know technically Parsons is a linebacker, but he's an edge rusher for the most part, so I put him on the defensive line as far as how I rank them and grade them. Very average in the middle of the field. And on the defensive back side, they should have Diggs, even though he missed most of the season last season. The problem with Diggs is he's a boom or bust corner where he's either going to get you a turnover or he's going to give up a touchdown. There's not, or a big play. There's really not a whole lot of in between with him. And the good thing, though, is with him being back and creating turnovers, Dallas strives off of that. They've been one of the few teams to force takeaways throughout the last decade or something like that. So as long as they can do that, their defense should be solid. But the issue is, are they going to be able to do that with a tougher schedule this season? We got to see. In conclusion, about Dallas, they have benefited from having a soft schedule and having a couple of teams in a division that have usually been soft in the Giants and the Commanders. So the first place schedule, it's still, the NFC is not the better conference, so it's still not the toughest schedule, but Philly should be back and significantly better. Washington should be better. I have no faith in the Giants. We'll get into them in a second. But I think this is going to be a tough season for Dallas. I will go under 9.5.
Fee, fi, fo, fum.
So now we go to the New York Football Giants. I'm a New Yorker, grew up in Brooklyn, New York. It's the team. They're not me. They're not my team, but it's the team of New York. Last season they went 6-11. This season they're over under set at 6.5. Can they hit it? Let's go ahead and break down the offense and defense and see if it's gonna make a difference. First of all, Daboll's probably gonna be in the hot seat, and he's most likely gonna get fired after this year. Very good coach. He's taking over the play calling now. I don't like coaches taking over, head coaches taking over play calling particularly, but they really need that because he's got Danny Buns of Plenty Jones. Like, the dude is so bad. One of the bottom 3 quarterbacks in football, in my opinion. The offensive line, though they added Runyon, is still bad. The running backs, Singletary is a good running back. He ain't Saquon, though, in my opinion. And he's now going to play against a significantly worse offensive line that Saquon was able to, with his pure talent, be able to put yards up on behind that line. Neighbors, I think, is going to be a beast. I think he's going to have a great season as soon as they replace Jones. So I think the rest of the wide receiver core, tight end unit, not really a big fan of. So I don't really have much good to say about the offense. Now let's go to the defense. The defense actually is better. I like the defense front seven. Thibodeau, to me, is a little bit overrated. They trying to make him like the next Michael Strahan. I don't think he's that good. I don't think he's anywhere close to being that good. But you still have Lawrence, and they just brought in Burns. So that defensive line doesn't give me any cause to pause. Really like their linebacking core. You got McFadden. You got Simmons, who hasn't played up to like his draft expectations, but he's a solid linebacker. And then Okoreke is a really good linebacker as well. But the defensive backs are pure buns. Like, I'm trying to remember, any Giants fan who sees this, let me know who number 21 was. He got drafted out of Alabama. I don't know why his name isn't coming to me right now. But that's the last good defensive back I can think of that they've had. So I don't know why they can't draft that position well, but they need to figure it out. Because when you got McLaurin, Lamb, Brown 6 times a year, what are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do? That's tough. They're not making it easy for this defense. Giants have been a really bad franchise for several years. They got a couple Super Bowls, to make people believe they were a good franchise off of, historical runs. But outside of those 2 Super Bowls, they've really been not good, like not good at all. And I don't think that this season is going to change anything. That first year with Daboll made it, seem like they're going to get back on track. No, they're not. They're not going to be a consistent playoff team. There's over under being 6.5. I think they're fighting for a top 5 draft pick. So under for the New York Giants. Now we're going out to Philly. The Philadelphia Eagles. Last season they had a major collapse at the end of the season. They started at 10-1. They lost to us. I think we beat them when they were 7-0. First time in franchise history we beat them, by the way. This season they're over under set at 10.5. Let's go ahead and break this down and see if we can hit that mark. So their coach surprisingly kept his job because everybody was calling for it, because it seemed like the coordinators were the ones that was really the heart and soul of that coaching staff, and it seemed like he was lost at times last season. But I heard that Jalen Hurts was injured throughout the whole season. He just kind of played through it. So with him being healthy, he should still be a top 7 to 10 quarterback. So I don't have any issues with that unit. Their offensive line, Pro Football Focus has them ranked as the second best offensive line, even without Kelsey. I think the Kelsey loss is a bigger loss than they believe. So I don't necessarily agree with them having a top 5 offensive line ranking, but they probably know better than me. Saquon, as long as he stays healthy, that running back group, I like it. I love Saquon as a player. He's a dual threat. He can run, he can catch. And the wide receiver group, come on. AJ Brown is one of my favorite wide receivers. They have the top 5 wide receiver group. Actually, to me, the best in the NFC wide receiver tandem. So I don't know what you can do about their offense. They're probably the weakest unit is their offensive line, in my opinion. But if Kelsey's not that big of a loss, they have a great offense. Now let's go to the defense. Well, Carter had slowed down towards the end of the season, and he pretty much gave away the Rookie of the Year, the Defensive Rookie of the Year. The middle of the field, Philly has no interest in spending money on linebackers. It's clear at this point. Their linebacker core virtually lost them a Super Bowl, and they really haven't invested in that position. But I'm really not concerned with the defensive line. When it comes to the defensive backs, I mean, there's a lot of questions. If Bradbury and Slade, they look old now. It's like they aged overnight. And that's bad. And when you're going up against, Lamb, Neighbors, and, if Neighbors is as good as I think he is, and McLaurin, that could be issues. But I think the offense should be able to carry this team. So they addressed the coaching issues for the coordinators, so we'll see if that works. If Brown, Saquon, and Hurts can stay healthy, then I have no concerns about the offense, really. The backside of their defense gives me concerns. But I think they said they had the 5th weakest schedule in football, so it actually turns out to be good. There's no reason for me to believe that Philly can't hit this over. They should win 11 or 12 games, just kind of looking at what they have on paper. Lastly, we got Washington. I've been predicting Washington to win 9 to 10 games. I'm a Washington fan. I'm not even in the slightest. But can they hit their over-under 6.5? Last season they went 4-13. Finished the season on an 8-game losing streak. We're going to have to see. Let's go ahead and break it down. Personally, I don't trust the coaching. I don't trust their coaching at all. But their front office has made a lot of changes, a lot of strides to where I can understand where their fan base believes that they can make some changes and do significantly better than under the Dan Snyder era. So I like that. I like what Washington has done. They've kind of rehauled this whole thing. Daniels, he was clearly the second best quarterback. I think there was a major drop off from him to May. He's playing very good in the preseason so far. So now my grade for him being a C+, that's mostly because I don't give any rookie over a C+, because I don't know how they look against real NFL defenses. But I think he's going to be fine. As long as he can stay healthy, because he used to take some big hits in college. The overall of the offensive line looks good for the fans, but they're starting 3 career backups. So, no. And Eckler, until last season, I think he was like a top 7 in all-purpose yards or something like that. So he's a really good running back. I think he's an upgrade at running back for them. You also have Robinson still there. So I don't have an issue with the running back unit. The football T-Mac, Terry McLaurin, is a top 10 wide receiver in this league. Dotson being gone, I guess last season he took a pretty big hit production wise. So they got rid of him, and I don't blame him. So the whole unit to me on offense, I don't think it's terrible. Last season, it was clear that they gave up on the season when they got rid of Sweat and Chase. So it was like, okay, they did nothing to help the defense. And then I'm looking at the defensive line and what moves they made. They still didn't really help the defensive line, at least. You would think they would replace a guy that was that good. Chase Young, I've been telling my Washington fans that he's a bust since day one. He got the bust stick. Anybody who wants to know about the bust stick, listen to the Between Brothers podcast. But Payne got paid a lot of money. He needs to live up to it. Jonathan Allen, solid, but they need a step. They took a step back. They need to step it up on defense. Louvu and Wagner, really good. You know, Wagner's getting up there in age, but he's still a really good linebacker. So we're just gonna have to see how that unit works. I think it's their strongest unit right now. Their defensive backs, they lost Cam Curl, they lost Fuller. That gives me concerns a lot. Forbes, Buns, and I've been hearing a lot of good stuff. Give me a second. I'm trying to make sure I get his name right. Sanrastil. I've been hearing a lot of good things about him. Saw some of his college film. It looked pretty decent. Just don't know how good he is at this level. But if he can live up to what he looked like in college, the defensive back should play a little better than the D ranking that I gave him. But we're just going to have to see. Now, can Washington hit the over? I've been betting the over for them the last 3 seasons, and I've been wrong too. And I'm probably going to be wrong again because I'm betting the over. I think they can win 7 games. Will they? You know, who knows? Because it is a rookie quarterback that they're hitching this on and not a very good offensive line. But if the coaching can get the running game working, I think they can protect I think they can protect Jaden Daniels, and then they can probably win 7 games. The schedule's not really all that tough. And the Giants play them well for some reason, but I don't know. They should be able to beat them a couple times. Now let's talk about the AFC East, which got my favorite team, the New York Jets. But we're not going to talk about them immediately. The first team we're going to talk about is the Miami Dolphins. Now, last season, Miami Dolphins went 11-6. The over-under set at 9.5. Can they hit that number? Well, McDaniels is a great offensive mind, so I don't see why they should be concerned about the offense. At least before November 15th. They lose every game after that. I'm exaggerating. Dolphins fans don't we won in week 16. I don't care nothing about that. Y'all don't win in the winter time on a consistent enough basis for me to think that y'all a good football team to win Super Bowls. Shut up. Anyways, Tua, I mean, he got big money. He's an okay quarterback, but he's not much better than Baker Mayfield to me. Left-handed Baker, in my opinion. The quick release game that they've kind of implemented has helped the offensive line. Those extremely speedy wide receivers helps the offensive line. They don't have to hold their blocks as long. So I'm not convinced that it's an above-average offensive line, but I don't think it needs to be a great offensive line in order to be productive, because those players, they can get open so fast. The Mostert and Achane, they're the best running back duo in football. The wide receivers, Waddle, Hill, what else is there to say? It's just speed all over the field. You can't cover them if there's not snow on the ground or if it's not cold or wet on the ground. The offense is brilliant. Brilliant. Like, there's nothing bad to say about the offense. Now let's talk about the defense. I think Wilkins is a huge hit. I think they've lost too much on the defensive line for me to think the defensive line is going to be very formidable, especially in those winter months. Now, Long is a great linebacker against the run, but like Philly, Miami doesn't really care about putting a lot of money into the linebacker core, which I get it because I don't think linebackers played when in the Rams Bengals Super Bowl. I'm exaggerating, of course, but their linebacking cores weren't that good either. It seems like if you have a strong defensive line and strong defensive backs, you can sacrifice a linebacker. The problem is this team doesn't have a strong defensive line, but they do have strong defensive backs. If Ramsey being healthy, fully healthy, and Fuller opposite him, they should make great, corner tandem, top 5 corner tandem. Holland is still a great player as well. I like the safeties as well. Their defensive backs give me no questions at all. I really like the defensive backfield for Miami. As usual, Miami will start fast and finish slow. The problem is, if the Jets are better, which they on paper they are, those aren't 2 gimme wins. So with them finishing 11-6 last season, I don't see how they can hit this over at 9.5. I don't see them getting 10 games if the Jets are better. So, yeah, we're going to have to see about that. I'm going the under, though.
The Bills make me wanna shout, kick your heels up and shout, throw your hands up and...
Now let's go to the Buffalo Bills. Quick thing I learned the other day about the city of Buffalo. Anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but the buffalo wing we all know was invented in Buffalo. But it was actually invented by a black man. I want to say his name was John Young. I learned this a couple weeks ago. But I want to say his name was John Young. He invented a Mamba sauce for wings, put them in chicken wings, because apparently back then, chicken wings were heavily discarded. And it never really picked up outside the black community. And he ended up having to close his restaurant because of riots that were going on back then with the civil rights. So yeah, shout to Buffalo, shout to, black entrepreneurship. But let's go ahead and get to the football stuff, shall we? So Buffalo last season had a surge late in the season, ended up winning the division, finished 11-6. They're over/under set at 9.5. So should they be able to hit that 9.5 with the Jets looking on paper better? Let's see. So I'm not really sure how long the coaching staff has. I haven't heard anything about McDermott being on the hot seat, but they can't keep blowing these big games, right? So we're going to have to see about that. And also, Buffalo's known to lay an egg, 2 eggs a year, like having really tough games or losing against teams they are significantly better than. Josh Allen, though I don't think he's overrated like they just voted him, but I do think he's overhyped. I do think that he should win more for the amount of hype he gets. I call those guys the good old boy club. Guys like him, guys like Brett Favre, they're usually a certain type. They got a certain look. They're from certain regions of the country. And for some reason, they get a pass all the time. But anyways, he's still a great quarterback. He's still probably one of the 10 best players in football. Now, Spencer Brown does improve the offensive line. So I think the offensive line will be solid this season. Cook is still a really good running back, so I don't have any issues with the running back core. I love Coleman as a wide receiver. Personality, his work. I've seen him, some of his camp stuff. Like, he looks good. I really like him. Kincaid and Knox, really good tight ends. So I really like the receiving group as a unit. But I do think that the loss of Diggs is going to affect them. But this is really going to show if Josh Allen is as good as I think he is anyways. So yeah, that's the offense. Now, let's go to the defense. Von Miller is washed. There's no coming back for him. He's coming off an injury. He wasn't really good when he was healthy. He's done, in my opinion. Oliver, though, he's improved, but he's still not great. Jones, healthy, can make the defensive line pretty solid. So we're gonna have to see about that. Milano is a great linebacker in coverage. Terrell Bernard is a solid linebacker as well. Milano did get hurt last season, so we're gonna have to see how he comes back. And the Buffalo has really capable corners. And Delaney, really good safety. So Rapp as well. So it's their best unit. It's their strongest unit on the defensive side. And they're definitely going to need that. So as long as the defensive line can play decent, I think the defense is going to be fine overall. As long as coaching or Josh Allen trying to play hero ball and throwing a bad play, there's no reason for me to believe that Buffalo won't win the division, even if the Jets are improved, which we'll get to them here in a little bit. But I don't see anything really being much of a threat to Buffalo as far as, winning the division, except they have the first place schedule, so they'll play against, the Kansas Cities, the Baltimores. So they're going to have a couple of tough AFC games coming up. So we'll have to see. We've come to my squad, the New York Football Jets. I don't know why I'm a fan of this team, but I am. And a lot of my friends don't believe I'm a real fan because I'm not delusional. Last season, the Jets went 7-10. This season, they're over under 9.5. I think they're have the highest odds to winning the division now. I think that just changed because Buffalo's taken a couple of hits injury-wise. But, let's see how this team breaks down. So, Hackett may be the worst offensive football coach in league history. He's the best under bet, period. He's won 99 games to the under. His teams don't score. Every team that he's led doesn't score. Solid, great defensive coach, but Hackett hasn't shown me that he can coach an offense to score enough points to win games on a consistent basis. The shining light is they say they're going to start taking some play calling away from him. In my opinion, Aaron Rodgers, last time we saw him, looked very average. And then as far as playing a full football games with Matt LaFleur, who's one of the 5 best offensive coaches in football, in my opinion. Now you're going to put him with Hackett, the worst offensive coach of all time. He's coming off an Achilles tear in which his mobility has been going down year after year, and he's in his 40s. I don't understand why Jets fans are so excited about the offense. Brees the Beast? Nah, I love him. The offensive line on paper looks good, but it's dependent on 2 players who are fairly been injury prone their whole career. So I'm not, Pro Football Focus has them as a 5th graded offensive line, which on paper I don't disagree with them. It's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if they're going to stay healthy enough to show that they're a top 5 offensive line. Brees the Beast, I think he's going to get 1,400 yards this year, 1,300 to 1,400 yards. It's my first and probably only statistical prediction I'm going to have on this whole preview show. So we're going to have to see about that. Wilson is already a top 10 wide receiver in my opinion. The rest of them, I don't really have much to say. So yeah, I really don't have a lot of faith in this offense, to be honest. The defense is a different story, though. To me, now, as y'all see with my grades, they're the only team that gets A-pluses all across the board for me. Only team. There's no weakness in this defense. Like, when Baltimore had that great defense with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and those guys, and like when the Jets had the great defense with Revis and Wilkerson, like, I can't think of a time where, like, there's usually like one team every 5 years that has an elite defense like this, and currently both conferences have one, in San Francisco and the Jets. The Jets defense is so impressive to me. Reddick, I don't necessarily think that the Jets really need to solve the contract thing, mainly because we had probably the top 2 or 3 defensive line without him. So I'm not really concerned about the D-line, because the D-line is going to go as far as Quentin Williams is going to take us. And of course, Quincy Williams, C.J. Mosley, they're the best linebacker duo in football. I'm saying that because I don't know what Greenlaw is going to be like. So, yeah. So they're the best linebacker duo in football. If Sauce Gardner learns how to pick passes off, there's nothing about this team that you can do about the defense. The defense is that damn good. And so that's why I understand why there's so much hype around the Jets, because they have a defense that's that damn good. They won 7 games last season without having a competent quarterback for any stretch of the imagination. So I can see why a lot of people are liking them to win at least more than 7 games. Coaching, health on offense are my biggest concerns. This isn't a playoff team to me, but on paper, it would be foolish to believe that they're not. Unfortunately, I'm a fool. I don't think this team is a playoff team. I don't think Aaron Rodgers got it anymore. I think Nathaniel Hackett's the best keep that. He's the best offensive coach at not scoring points. I don't think that's going to change. Aaron Rodgers couldn't change it. His last season with Green Bay, they weren't scoring points. So I don't know what people expect to change. 41-year-old quarterback coming off an a torn Achilles, and I heard that he's only thrown 5 passes in camp. And here's another thing. Found this stat out. Statistically speaking, Aaron Rodgers has been on the same level of quarterback as Desmond Ridder, Ryan Tannehill, and Baker Mayfield over the last 1,000 days. Since this season, Monday night would be the first time, or his last 300-yard passing game was 1,000 days prior to when he played San Francisco. Yeah, can you believe that? 3 years. 3 years. That's including 1 year, of course, he was injured. But there's 2 other years he hasn't thrown a 300-yard game. Aaron Rodgers has washed people. So, Jets 8 and 9 in my opinion. Let's go to the most irrelevant team now in the AFC East, and that's New England Patriots. Last season, they went 4-13. This year, their over-under is set at 4.5. I think they have the lowest over-under total, if I'm not mistaken. Can they hit it? Let's see. Gerard Mayo, when I used to play fantasy football and we did individual defensive players, I love Gerard Mayo. Tackling machine. Not sure what he is as a coach. And the sad thing is, New England only won 4 games. They probably won 3 of those games solely because of Belichick being able to outcoach his opponent. That's the sad thing. They really weren't a very good team. So we're gonna have to see how he does with that. Drake May, I never really thought highly of him coming out of college. I don't think highly of anybody at the quarterback position that comes out of North Carolina. Brissett is a career backup. I don't think that changes anything. The offensive line, it's a bad offensive line in my opinion. They have Okorafor starting at left tackle. He's played almost no snaps at left tackle his whole career. Literally, he's only played 2 snaps at left tackle, so I'm not feeling that. Stevenson, he's okay. I like him. Gibson in the pass game should help, but the running backs aren't nothing to write home about. I can't name a player that catches passes on New England outside of Hunter Henry, and I looked their wide receiver core up 3 times. Still don't remember none of their names. That's how bad it is. Probably the worst receiving core in football. They got rid of Judon, their best pass rusher. So the defensive line is going to struggle. Tava, I'm a fan of in coverage, or Tavai, I think is how you say it. I'm a fan of his. Taki, he had a really good season last season. He had his best season last season. So the linebackers, I like them. I think it's the only unit worth really talking about as far as being a really good unit. And they have a former linebacker at coach, so I don't think their linebacker core is going to have any issues. I don't think the defense overall is going to have too many issues. Gonzalez was looking like a top 10 corner before he got hurt. So I really love him. Jabril Peppers, I remember when he was coming out of college, people were wondering if he was a linebacker or a safety. I felt like he was a safety. He didn't do great with Pittsburgh, but he's been flourishing with New England. So I really love the defensive backfield. But you know, Belichick's coaching means a lot, so we got to see how they adjust to that. There's no Bills, so I ain't putting no Bills on them to get the over. This team is looking like a solid 3-win team, like battling top 3 draft pick. Truly do believe so. I don't even know why they wasted their draft pick on Drake May. Really don't understand that. Because I think the top 3 quarterbacks coming out are all better than Drake May. But I haven't really watched a whole lot of film on them yet, so usually don't really think about those guys until draft time. But yeah, that's New England. New England's going to be back to what they were before Tom Brady. Pathetic. And I love it. I love it because, you know, as a kid, growing up as a Jets fan, my rival was the Dolphins because they had Dan Marino and they was putting in work. Buffalo with Thurman Thomas and Jim Kelly. I never thought of the Patriots as a rival until Tom Brady got there. And I'm glad he's gone. Glad he's gone. Glad him and Bill are gone. Y'all going to suck for the next 40 years. The next 40 years, y'all going to suck. And I'm going to enjoy every piece of it. Love you, Gerard Mayo, but I ain't rooting for you, brother. Sorry. That was the Eastern Division Lando Sports Discussion, Episode 3. Thank you all for sitting there, watching, and listening to me rant about my football team for like 35 minutes, okay? But if you enjoy what you watch, go ahead and go ahead and subscribe. We will be bringing more episodes. The the West Divisions are next. Usually I try to do it every week, but we're getting close to the football season that needs to get out there. And we're getting close to my NFL podcast show, my NFL episode for the podcast on the Between Brothers podcast. So I got to get that out before that comes out. So that's going to come a little quicker than expected. But If you agree with whatever or disagree with whatever, go ahead and comment below, and I'd love to hear the feedback. Until next time, this has been Lando Sports Discussion. We'll see you.